In this video, we're going to talk about central bank digital currencies, what they mean for you, and how you can protect yourself if a digital currency is rolled out. So with the rise of cryptocurrencies and the technology behind the currencies, there's been a lot of talk naturally around, will the normal dollars and pounds and euros that we use every day be eventually converted into some form of digital currency? And it might surprise some of you, but there are lots of central banks around the world currently trialing right now the use case for CBDCs in the real world. So let's take a look now what the RBA are actually up to with their CBDC. So according to the RBA, a CBDC is a new form of digital currency that's going to be issued by the Reserve Bank. It's going to be used for retail, so general purposes in which you and I would use it every single day, where we would have a digital version of a banknotes that's accessible by anyone. I think importantly here, it also says for wholesale use as well. So a lot of wholesale markets where there's payments and settlement systems, I think a CBDC would be quite beneficial in those senses. So essentially for regular everyday people, I don't see a central bank digital currency being all too different from what we use our money every day for. I mean, at the moment, you know, I use my phone to tap and pay or a card to tap and pay. I very rarely ever use cash. There are obviously a lot of people out there that would still use cash today. And I think the cash paper that we know today is obviously, as the years have gone on over the past sort of 5, 10, 15, 20 years, have just been less and less in terms of the cash transactional activity. So it kind of makes sense that, you know, the direction of money and the direction of the way that we use money is going to go on a more digital format. I think there are some pros and cons with this. You know, at the moment, for example, if I was to use cash as a payment, there is little to no way of actually tracing the true source of funds for that particular transactions. But with a digital currency, all of the movement on the digital currency platform will be tracked and stored on a ledger. So the payment of money from me to you, from you to, you know, a retailer, from the retailer to a wholesaler, is all traceable. And some might see that as a great thing and others might see that as a bit more intrusive, but I'll leave that up to you to make that decision. So a digital currency is going to, according to the information that I've seen on the RBA, etc., is going to sit alongside the regular currencies that we have today. So I don't see a scenario where, you know, one day cash is going to be completely gone and the digital currency will fully replace it. But I do see it being, you know, cash being phased out over a period of time, whatever that is, years or decades, and then we will fully transition into a digital currency. So that's what it is and what we can use it for. But how is this going to impact like your everyday savings if you have money that's sitting with the bank? And I do see a big problem today with inflation that's obviously eating away at the purchasing power, and more so than ever in the last sort of 12, 18 months. So what can you do to actually protect yourself against inflation? And what can you do to protect yourself against a digital currency or any other form of currency that was to come in and replace our sort of everyday transactional way of using these currencies? And it really comes down to having an alternative store of value, where there are other forms of assets that do hold and increase their value over time. So what I'm talking about specifically for me is precious metals. So your gold, silver, that type of thing. So let's take a look at the gold price here, for example. And since the 1970s, you can see the price in the 1970s versus today, it's obviously ebbed and flowed over that time, but over the long term, it's grown in value, and it's proven to have grown in value over decades. Similar thing for me with real estate. You want to be holding real assets that hold and increase in value. So for example, real estate, particularly here in Australia, because there are a number of other factors that drive this, but the property prices over the long term, and you're talking decades, have steadily increased in value. You do have some markets that do drop. You do have some markets that fluctuate quite rapidly, but again, just like gold, over the long term, real estate holds its value. So if you're to protect yourself from inflation and you protect yourself from currency changes, you want to store your wealth in real assets. Gold and silver, for example, or real estate is another way to protect yourself against these fluctuations in the currency that we're using. So I think all in all, a central bank digital currency, whether we like it or not, whether we have different views of that, I think that's definitely the direction of money and transacting in the future. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to be all scary or all bad, but I think there is going to be different ways of using that particular currency that we currently don't really use today. But ultimately, you want to be operating outside of that monetary system. And like I said, the best way to protect yourself from that is to have real assets that hold real wealth that grow over time. Hopefully that's helped you understand a little bit more about where we are at currently with CBDCs, what the impact and use case would be if we were to use something like this. And I don't think it's too far away. I mean, you could see there, the banks have been, running projects on this for a number of years already. So I think, before 2030, I think the CBDC is definitely something that's going to be rolled out. And ultimately, to protect yourself from that, you want to hold real assets outside of this currency system. So that's all from me today on CBDCs. Hopefully you got a bit of value out of that. Until next time, thanks for watching. I'll catch you soon.